So good morning, Ship2Shore family. Good morning, Michelle. Morning, Barbara, Wilhelmina. Today we are
Yay!
closing up and we are wrapping up our the review of Adam Grant's book Think Again, which is the book that we read during the month of March. I cannot believe that March is gone already. I feel like January was super
No, I
slow, and
can't
then
believe it.
February and March is really gonna have to look at my calendar again right now just to make sure that it's the end of March, and it is super quick.
Yeah, and we've had
Um,
some good readings. Like these are three really powerful books, and so I'm excited that people can get value out of it. And I think it's also really good reset for us too, just to check in on what we're doing and keeping us aligned.
Absolutely, and they all kind of like talk to each other, and that's what I'm liking about it. That one just piles up and then just wrecks up on the other one, and you can see them kind of like building up on each other, although they don't really mention from one material to the next. But you can see it really building up on like building blocks on where we're trying to get ourselves to. So once again, welcome. And just to briefly introduce the author, Adam Grant, as we mentioned in our preview, he's a professor. He's a renowned book writer, but he's also a professor at the Wharton School at the University of Pennsylvania, Harvard graduate, and he's currently an organizational psychologist who goes and assesses CEOs, MBAs, presidents, big corporations, Pepsi, you name it, right? Like he's out there, big corporations, big names, and it's people that have to do like key strategic thinking and decision making, and he's out there helping either students or people at big corporations making those big decisions and scrutinize the way that they think. So this book, what I truly liked about it's that it challenges on the way that we think, from the very foundation of our thoughts, all the way until the very last bit of it. And I truly enjoyed that. So during this webinar, we're gonna just talk about the takeaways, the stuff that really stood out to our attention, that really caught our attention, and what we can take from it and apply it as former crew members, and how we can apply it to our day-to-day lives as we grow our land legs. Yeah. Anything else, Barbara, that you might want to add?
No, I just think that it's when you layer all three of these books together, it's got so much power, and I think this also like segues, and we've talked about this stuff before, is that our thoughts can create our reality. Like what we're thinking about, what we're spending time marinating in, it's what starts to become real in our lives. And he doesn't get into this level of that, but I think we've just talked about mindset. We've talked about ensuring that as you're transitioning from ship to shore, that you are getting off knowing who you want to become, who you want to be, who you want to work for. And so I like how this kind of starts with, let's point the finger at ourselves first, to say, okay, what do I need in my toolbox to be the best version of myself? And I always love a book that has data research. Like I love when college professors write books because there's validity to it. It's not just a motivational rah-rah book. And I think our next book, Wilhelmina, because I re-listened to a podcast by this guy, by I think it's Adam Brooks. I can't remember his last name. He wrote the book The Happiness Advantage. It's like this amazing book, and he's a professor at Harvard that teaches a class on happiness. And this Adam's work and his writing is very similar. So I just think it really helps us understand the power of rethinking and reframing.
And that, I think that's the key to this, the rethinking, right? And what really got me into this book was because when I was researching and seeing which one we could read next, the premise of this book, there was one line that I even wrote down, and I loved that. It said the importance, it explores the importance of rethinking unlearning and embracing a mindset of continuous learning in order to thrive in an increasing complex and uncertain world. But the key word that really stood out for me was unlearning, not even rethinking, unlearning, like deleting stuff from your mind, right? Like those paradigms and those stuff that it's written there and engraved in stone, sometimes from our early years, or the way that I'm pretty sure that we all can think of corporations or workplaces where we work, and when they're training us, they tell us, well, and you question something, to tell you, well, that's the way it's done. That's the way it's always been done, right? And then that's something that I always challenge my teams in saying, well,
Yeah.
just because it's the way that it's always been done, it doesn't mean that that's the way it has to be done. If you have a new way, by all means, share it. And if you can think of
Yeah.
new ways to do it, do it. But rethinking, we can do it, right? But unlearning, to me, that was unheard of. I had never heard of the term of unlearning something, and it takes humility, right, to accept something and to say, okay, this is
Mm-hmm.
not even that you're wrong, maybe just outdated. And something, Barbara, that I want to mention really quick, just to make a bigger of a bracket here. Something that we mentioned when we introduced the book was uh, thinking of our mentality and our minds like an OS system and a computer or a phone. Hi, John.
Mm-hmm.
Welcome. Welcome.
Mm-hmm.
I'm thinking of our mindset like a OS system or like a phone system, and no one's running Windows 95 nowadays. If you saw someone at a coffee shop opening up a computer right next to you, and they had in the laptop Windows 95, and you would hear the sounds, you'd be like, what? Or ICQ or something like that. You would be like, what are you running? Or opening up, instead of pulling their iPhone, they would be pulling up their BlackBerry, right, with buttons. And just because systems continuously update, and we have to go with the times, because if you get outdated, you can no longer run the latest apps, or you can no longer even log on to your bank or what have you. Just life itself has pushed us to continuously upgrade systems. But the same hasn't happened with our mindsets. There's a lot of us that are still stuck with our
Yeah.
mindsets and mentalities that we've had for the last decade or two. Or and in technology, if you're a decade behind, you are way more than a decade behind it. So I guess you just imagine how it relates to the way that we think. So I really love that word,
Yeah.
unlearning something so that we can give space to something new.
Yeah. Yeah. No, and I think, Christian, it's as we're I go back to language again, is that as we're walking into AI, as our parents were walking in their adulthood, were walking into the internet, the world wide web, the net, this big scary technology, is we have to be really careful about our language. Is that we're literally, I hear so many of my peers repeating the exact same thing that my parents said 40 years ago, that was like, oh, what is this world becoming? The robots are taking over, da 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 da. People are not even going to have to think anymore. I'm like, no, we need to be changing our language to celebrate. Wow, look at how we're evolving as humanity. Look what we're going to be able to do. Look at the goodness that's coming out of this technology. And I think that anytime that we have language that is certain, so I have a friend, a beloved friend of mine, that a lot of times she said, no, I'm 100% right on this one. She always says this like phrase, like, I'm 100% certain. No, no, I'm certain. And I'm like, there's not many phrases that we can, but besides like 1+1 is 2 and 2+2 is 4 and things like that. Like, there's not many things that we should really, when it comes to our opinion, be saying with 100% certainty, because that blocks off possibility. And so, to this power of unlearning, like, today things are changing at lightning speed. And so what we believed, what we assumed, what we knew before, personally, professionally, that is moving at a speed that we have never seen. And so his other point is about intellectual humility, and I'll let you talk about that, Christian. But it's like, just being okay with that we're not always right, and just going like, there are new and different ways of doing things, and that can be better. So, Christian, I'll let you talk to that one.
Yeah, 100%. So intellectual humility, it's one of the five key themes that's takeaways from the book. The first one is cognitive flexibility. Second one, as you mentioned, it's intellectual humility. Sorry that I'm looking at my notes. Third one is challenging assumptions. Fourth one is resilience in the face of failure, effective communication and persuasion. And the sixth one, sorry, there's six, cultivating a growth mindset. Um, and just to go over, so that we can go in order before we hit the intellectual humility, we'll quickly go through them. Cognitive, cognitive or cognitive? Cognitive, right? Cognitive, I'm saying it right. Yes. Cognitive flexibility and
Cognitive,
cognitive.
yeah.
Um,
Cognitive, whatever you
eh,
want to say, it doesn't matter.
basically, it's involving being open to reconsidering your beliefs, your opinions, and our assumptions, right? Arguing that in the fast-paced world that we're living in right now, the ability to adapt and change to our mind is essential for success. It's just being able to have that flexibility, right? To be able to open. And it goes on to saying, like, if you're arguing with someone, and a lot of it, oftentimes you're talking to someone and you can see that people are just, they're not listening to, they're not hearing so that they can answer the question. They're listening so that they can respond, not really just to what you're saying, just to like defend their thought. And the same goes to us, right? When I'm saying it, it doesn't mean that I don't do it, right? Never in these webinars am I saying that I conquered it, or I'm saying it for my high horse. No, but it's at some points, sometimes I'm on that side, sometimes on this other side. But it just goes on to saying, when you're running to that situation, ask the other person this question, saying, what evidence do you need to change your mindset? And if at that point that person says nothing, then there's no point in having that discussion, right? Because then you know that you're not going to go anywhere. And the same goes with negotiation. The same goes with businesses. The same goes with when you're sharing whatever it is with family and friends, and it's just having that flexibility of knowing that you're going to have an open mindset and being flexible to change your opinion, which is very linked to the second one that you just mentioned, Barbara, the intellectual humility. The book underscores the importance of intellectual humility and the recognition that your knowledge and understanding are limited and subject to revision. The author encourages the readers to approach learning with a sense of curiosity and openness, acknowledging that there's always more to learn. There's no way on earth that any individual is going to possess all the wisdom and knowledge that has, up to this date and age, has been accumulated in the course of history. Sometimes I stop myself and I wonder, it's like, kids nowadays, just in their minds, the amount of songs that they have to remember. But back in the 80s, you had like a catalog of 20, 30 decades worth of songs, right? Now, imagine just that. I mean, just to put an example, the amount of knowledge that people have to have, and it's just, and their minds keep expanding. It's just so much knowledge that keeps being poured on, and even though so, it has to be from one generation put onto the next, because there's no way that one mindset is going to be able to carry all that information. So it's knowing that not one person is going to have all that knowledge. It's knowing that it's cumulative, that as much as you find yourself that you're very knowledgeable or wise in one subject, there's no way on earth that you can have or possess all the wisdom and knowledge or information that is required in a particular subject. Does it make sense?
Yeah. And it, yeah, that makes a ton of sense. And you guys, Michelle, John, please feel free to raise your hand if you have a comment or question about any Christian saying as it relates to the book. And I will just say that I keep on bringing back AI and technology because I think it's so relevant to what everybody's walking through right now, is that there's so much data that is showing that people are really, really hard set in their beliefs today. So their political beliefs, their religious beliefs, their people are so firm on things in their lives, to the point that people are moving out of cities, breaking up friendships over differences in opinion. And so this book and what he's saying here is really challenges that staunch, hard nature, that conflict that we're seeing between people. But where I bring in AI into all of this is that having these skills that he goes through in the book, being able to have an educated discussion with somebody where your opinions are different, and being able to have humility and hear the other side in a way. And I sat at a dinner last night where everybody around the table had the same general political belief, and they had very strong opinions about this political belief. And mine was generally the same as theirs, but I don't really talk about it with such anger that they had around the table about the hate that they had for this other side. And I just kind of like stopped and I said, guys, I really truly think the challenge is being able to sit across the table from somebody you don't agree with and listen and understand. I'm like, or the separation and the division continues. And as we go into new workplaces, we have to acknowledge that these conflicts, people are becoming so strong in their feelings that if we can have skills that he's teaching us in this book, and we can bring that to our corporate professional lives, we are leveled up. So what Christian's saying about the song lyrics and all that type of stuff, what we have to remember today, AI is replacing a lot of that. So our emotional intelligence, our ability to listen, our ability to understand, to negotiate, to unlearn, to question assumptions, all the points that he's bringing up is so, so, so important that we need to be able to train ourselves well enough that we can have calm, effective discussions where somebody gives us feedback and we don't get offended, and we see good in both sides of any situation. We can understand, but understanding doesn't mean agreeing. And so there's so much that we can take away from these points that can serve us in our personal lives and in our and awkward dinners with people that talk about politics. So I think that those things, that interpersonal skills are so important today.
Which I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, John and Michelle, but I think it's kind of like a given in crew members. It's we were so open-minded. We sat at table. If sometimes you didn't travel the world, say that you were stuck on a ship that used to go to Nassau and and Haiti and round and round and round 3 and 4 days. You didn't travel the world, but the world came to you because you would go for lunch, and then you had someone from the Ukraine, someone from Istanbul, and then someone from the Netherlands sitting at your table, and with a Mexican, and then you're all, it sounds like a joke, but you have all those nationalities sitting together, walking at a bar or sitting at a table. Go ahead, Michelle, feel free to interrupt me. But the world came to you, and you had to keep an open mind, and it brought you so much enrichment. So, and the world came to you, and we had to have that open mindset. But it was not something that we were taught. It was something that it just came, or was it enforced? Go ahead, Michelle.
I just think it's funny because when it comes to the people that we work with on board, we have an open mind, but sometimes when it comes to our job and how it's done, we did not have an open mind because we were taught to not have an open mind. This is the way we do it, and you do it this way, or this is how I do it, and if you do it any other way, you're going to get in trouble. But when it came to the people that we worked with,
True.
we were very open-minded, very
True.
like, oh yeah, okay, you're from here? Oh, that's so cool. Tell me about your country. Tell me about your customs. Tell me about your
True.
beliefs. Tell me about your holidays. But if you
Yeah.
did one thing wrong at work, oh, why did you give this person this silverware? Or why did you tell this parent this thing? Or why did you let this person in this room when they should have been in the
True.
other room? I think that is something that is very funny. And when you would try to sometimes bring up new ways of doing things, not everybody was open to it, or they wanted to see you fail sometimes first to show you that it was wrong, because sometimes that was the easiest way to train a new hire is let them do it, let them see that it doesn't work,
True.
and just
So it
go
was like
from there.
people versus procedures, right? We were amazing with people, and procedures we were super strict about.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
even if we thought something would work, or if we showed that something did work, sometimes our managers or our managers were like, no, that's not how we do it. But on a personal level, we were very open, very flexible, but sometimes in a work level, we were not as flexible with those. And I think that's funny because you're right. It's true. We are very open, very welcoming, very like, oh, we're able to rethink different things about different people, different cultures, different religions, everything. Like you will, everything that you knew growing up interpersonally will be tested. But when it came to your actual job, you were like, no, absolutely not.
Yeah. And there
And I
there
think that
was
was
something.
interesting.
Now that you're mentioning that, Barbara, I don't know if it happened during your time on board, but there was something that was mentioned, and it was kind of like a demeaning type of form when it was mentioned between us. But it was saying, "Oh, it's a small ship mentality. They have a small ship mentality. So if you were sent to one of the newer ships or the new builds or the brand new ones, you knew that you had a big mentality and you were flexible and you could adapt to new things, and you were like this with the corporate office because you could just adapt to anything brand new. But when someone struggled, we would always say, it was like, oh, they come from a small ship. So maybe on land it translates, so it's like, oh, they come from a farm, they come from a small town. And right away you would be like, oh, okay, then cut them some slack, right? Or give them a break because they come from a small ship and they don't know how to expand their mind. And that's the meaningful, right? Because instead of helping them or that, you would just put them in a box and saying, oh, don't pay too much attention to them because they come from a small ship, which is, I think it's very rude from our side that we used to do, but we used to do
Yeah.
it a lot.
And I think also, like, with that stuff that happens, we also carry that into our careers. So if you were a manager, if you got to management level, you got trained in the rigidity. But it's kind of like, there's a lot of purpose to the rigidity, because it's like McDonald's, the way that they operate the way that they are is because nobody gets an opinion in how the hamburgers are made, because you want the hamburgers to stay the same no matter what country you're in. So nobody gets to decide to put, unless it goes through this super complicated approval process. But then at the time, that's also the value that we bring when we go to an organization, like this rigidity and this standardization and these systems. So like when somebody goes to a boutique small hotel, that they can bring so much process, SOPs, and things that this hotels never even envisioned were possible. But then at the same time, when change has to happen, that's when we become a little bit difficult. So they're seeing this is so good because it's questioning everything, the unlearning, the cognitive flexibility that he talks about is going, like, situations are going to change. Unfortunately, in many of the big cruise lines, you're in this huge McDonald's. So the flexibility is not as easy. But when you're at a smaller, more local company, like, do it. Start making the changes, start questioning the things, start being flexible. And it's exciting to see what you can do.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Um, I'll move down the list on the third one. Challenging assumptions. It's challenging the readers to question their own assumptions and biases, as well as those of others. He explores the dangers of confirmation bias and the tendency to seek out information that confirms pre-existing beliefs, and encourages readers to actually actively seek out diverse perspectives and dissenting opinions. This one I found extremely like eye-opening and extremely dangerous. And I used to hear it at church all the time. You can make the Bible say anything you want. And it's very dangerous because, I mean, nowadays, think about it, no one is on the wrong. Everybody is on the right. If you go on social media as a broken-hearted person that you're being emotionally abused by a narcissist, and go as a victim, everything you'll find will support that you are the victim. Everything, quotes and videos and whatever it is. But go into it feeling that you are the narcissist and that you are the person, you won't find anything. You won't, because everything is towards the person that it's being attacked. And same thing, like, it's everywhere you go, like all the research that you do and all that, it's really like it's even if you look at movies.
Well, I
Like,
think diets are like the perfect example. Like, you should eat more protein. You should eat less protein. You need to eat high. No, you need to eat low. Like, diets are like the thing. You can find anything to tell you anything that will.
true.
But and you're like, run more, run less. Do the sauna. Don't do the cold plunge. Don't do the cold plunge. Like, everything is good or bad for us. You can sway any argument.
And exactly, but even in movies, you don't see the villain knowing that they're the villain. They think they're on the right. Everybody thinks they're on the right, and that to me, it's a perfect example of a biased way of thinking, your assumption, right? You're assuming that you're right, and then you're seeking out information that's just gonna confirm your pre-existing belief, and what's said and drilled in your mind that you're on the right, that what you feel and how you feel, how you think, how you act is the right way to feel and think and act. And you're just looking for more information that is going to back up your way of thinking. So that's why we have to be very, very careful with that, because I mean, you can make any book, and you can find books to support the way that you think as well. And you could be so much on the wrong on that one. The next one is resilience in the face of failure. Grant discusses the role of failure and setbacks in the learning process, and argues that failure is not inherently negative, but rather an opportunity for growth and learning. That one we've all heard it before. Reframing failure as a natural part of the learning journey, so that we can develop greater resilience and perseverance. I think that one, it's a given. We all know that we learn more from our mistakes than from what we do well.
And really a great question to leaders, and to like somebody you're interviewing with, or somebody that you're looking at promoting, is going, hey, when was the last time you failed? And a really strong leader who is doing the work like this, described in this book, is going to go like, do you want to know failure within the last 24 hours, or do you want to know like in my lifetime? Like they're going to have this real humility and understanding that failure is a natural part of life and not a reflection of them as a human. That because I fail, I am a failure, or that because I fail, I am human and I'm real.
Say the last bit again. But because I failed, I am human and real.
Yeah, I'm human. That when somebody has the humility to receive feedback, to understand when they're doing things wrong, like they don't associate failure with their self-worth. They associate failure with just being normal. I'm a human being. I'm a human being. Fall and skip, and things happen and mistakes happen. It's a normal trait, versus it being a definition of character.
Good. Okay. Gotcha. And then the last one is cultivating a growth mindset. The author advocates for cultivating a growth mindset. They believe that intelligence and abilities can be developed through the effort and practice. And embracing a growth mindset, individuals are more likely to persist in the face of challenges, seek out feedback, and continuously strive for improvement. Which is what everyone in this group is doing, right? We're pursuing growth, and we're not happy with where we're standing. We always want to continue to grow and challenge our boundaries and push ourselves to, what was it from the previous book? Not the comfort zone, but the excellence, zone of excellence, zone of genius.
Zone of genius. Yep, the big leap.
Yep. So as an overall from those concepts, Think Again encourages the readers to embrace the mindset of intellectual humility, curiosity, and openness to change by challenging assumptions, learning from failure, and actively seeking out diverse perspectives. Individuals can adapt and thrive in an ever-changing world. So what I want to go into the next, there's four key takeaways from the way of thinking that he mentions throughout the book, which is the preacher mindset, the prosecutor mindset, the politician mindset, and the scientist mindset, which is ways of thinking. And I think it will be interesting if we do the second part of this webinar, so that we can wrap up with that. And it's just the way that we approach things, the way that we when we speak, when we talk, when we approach, everything that we do, the way that we approach it, the way that we adapt it, and the way that we process it through our minds, and the way we tackle it as well. It's just different angles and perspectives, and then the results that you can get from them all. The preacher mindset, if I can start with the first one, this mindset is characterized by certainty and conviction in one's beliefs and perspectives. And honestly, think of a preacher up on stage, right, or the pulpit. Preachers tend to hold steadfast to their ideas, often without considering alternative viewpoints or new evidence. While confidence can be an asset, excessive certainty can lead to closed-mindedness and resistance to change. And we've all been like that in certain, and I maybe you don't necessarily have to be one of this four. Maybe I find that I myself, in some topics I'm this person, in some topics I might be a different one, in some topics I may be a different one. So I guess it's valid that you're different ways of thinker and different ideas. But this one in particular, the preacher one, is one that you're very steadfast and you hold very steadfast to your beliefs, and the way there's very little leeway or wiggle room for you to unlearn or adapt new mentalities or ideas.
And I think that in my younger time, and when I was younger, I definitely, like, I can still take on a preacher thing like all the time. I could preach all day long to somebody about a book or about a thing or about whatever new podcast that I heard. But one of the things that I have to be really conscious about is just saying, in my life, this is what I have found. In my health, this is what I found. This have worked for me. I don't know if it would work for you, because, and I think that when you can put context to your words and just say, hey, this is my story and this is what I walked through and this is what I experienced when I went through this situation, then people can either relate and connect to it or take a tidbit away from it, how it fits for them. Because I think I just had somebody talking to me recently about veganism and like how it's going to transform my life, and I was like, okay, that's good for you, like not for me, and like like not right
But
now, I'm happy.
that's amazing,
And
Barbara, because it's a little tip, but it's a great piece of advice. Because Michelle, you and I were discussing earlier and a couple of weeks back that we were so fed up with self-help books and people that used to write books and thinking that they had cracked the code and they're sitting on their high horse and saying how. But this is fantastic, because with this little piece of advice, you're just providing that it's in my life and in my story. It's in my personal, and the way that it's worked for me. So you're being humble and you're just keeping it within, you're just sharing what has worked for you, but not making yourself the owner of the truth, right?
I
yeah,
did like
it's
this
very
book
different to
better
say like, hey,
so far. Sorry, I like this
well,
one
good,
better
good,
than
good.
the other two. And because it wasn't, I feel like it
Okay.
wasn't as much of, oh, you have to do this, oh, you have to do that, or you're only going to be good at making your habits if you do this. You're only going to be good at, getting into the zone of excellence or the zone of genius by doing this. It was more, all of them provide case studies. This one provided case studies and anecdotes, but it didn't feel too like you have to do this to succeed. It's like, hey, maybe if you rethink the way you're thinking about this, possibly you'll come to a better or a different understanding. Will I ever be a Red Sox fan? No. Diehard Yankees fan. Do I hate the Boston fans? Absolutely not. Do I know people? Have I been to Boston wearing my Yankee shirt and got yelled at? Yes, but that's fine. I read that when I was reading that chapter, I found that hilarious because I am a Yankees fan. And I'm just like, I don't need to rethink that. Like, I'm a diehard Yankees fan, but I'm not going to turn against people. But I just thought it was funny. Like, more of the situations were more relatable in this book than some of the other situations and anecdotes. So I did like this one. I know Christian and I have had that discussion before. It's like, I don't know about these self-help books, but yeah, this one so far has been my favorite one that we've read.
Good.
And it's just taking a little bit of, like, no matter how the person writes or what they say or what, they might be the preacher, and we can move on from the preacher thing, but the preacher, I don't remember what the other ones were, but like really just being able to say, like, in any given book, you might get one thing out of the Atomic Habits. You might get one little thing out of that helps you, and then it's worth it. Like, from a discussion, and one of the things that I love to have is like discussions with people, with crew members, about their religion. I'm like, tell me about Hinduism. I want to understand it. I don't get it. Explain to me this, and this. What's the difference between this one and that one? Because that helps me. That helps me understand the human, the belief, open my mind to the world. So I think that there's so many, like, just take a little bit of something so that we're not preachers. So we're not steadfast in what we do, besides the sports fans. There's grace for that, right? I'm kidding.
Absolutely. Then the second one is the prosecutor mindset. The prosecutor mindset is marked by a tendency to seek out flaws and weaknesses in others' arguments or ideas. Individuals operating from this mindset often engage in debates and arguments with the goal of proving themselves right or others wrong. While critical thinking is essential, the prosecutor mindset can inhibit collaboration and constructive dialogue. And again, I think the name is very clear. One is a preacher. This one is a prosecutor. Think of a courtroom. Think of someone as the prosecutor is just right there. It's like straight to what he's going, and I would say like little empathy, little just operating from a mindset, just in debates and arguments, and just proving that they are right, and making the other person, proving that the other person is wrong, right? Like right over wrong, rather than any challenging themselves or making themselves open for the possibility. Or, and again, you don't have to be one or the other. There's areas and topics in our lives that maybe we're one or the other.
And
Prosecutor.
prosecutors don't have a lot of friends because people can't tolerate that for a long time. Like they get tired. You don't want that. You don't want a friend that's always giving you advice or calling you out on stuff you need to be better on. It's just not fun.
But sometimes we do need a prosecutor to tell us when you really need to make a decision, or I don't know. But do you think that we're all a certain someone, like one of these four, or do you share the idea that how flexible is your way of
I'm sure we
thinking?
have that. You're probably more honest with your brother or your sister or something like that about some stuff than some of your friends, you know, just because you have confidence in that would be an interesting thing to dig into in this. Or to like there's the training I used to do ages ago, it was called the 5 hats. And hey, have you ever heard of this training, the 5 hats?
No.
It was like, it was essentially like you would put on different hats to have different roles. So in this example, it would be like, all right, Christian, I'm going to put on my prosecutor hat right now, and I'm going to talk to you in this tone and in this way because I feel like you need it in this moment. Or I'm going to put on my whatever these different hats are, like, and I can't, if it's a blue hat, a red hat, it was so long ago, but there might be some of that in this where we put on different hats with different people or in different seasons. Like, enough, I've heard about the boyfriend, break up with him. Like, I don't know.
It kind of rings a bell. It kind of rings a bell, like a dynamic back in high school, but I can see that. The next one is the politician mindset. I think it goes very similar. Politicians prioritize winning approval and maintaining positive relationships over seeking truth or embracing intellectual honesty. They may avoid challenging conversations or controversial topics in favor of preserving harmony and avoiding conflict. While diplomacy and relationship building are valuable, the politician mindset can hinder genuine dialogue and innovation by lacking genuinity, I guess, by just being liked, by not being able to stand your ground or keep a point, or just going with the flow all the time. I mean, it's peaceful, I guess, but I mean, where are you going, really? I mean, you're just flowing. Yeah. And then the last one, where the scientist mindset, this is the best one, and the one that the author says that he encourages people to really remain on the most, is the scientist mindset is characterized by curiosity, humility, and willingness to explore new territories. Scientists approach situations with an open mind, actively seeking out information and diverse perspectives. They're comfortable with uncertainty and ambiguity, viewing challenges as opportunities and for growth and learning. Embracing the scientist mindset enables individuals to adapt to change, make more informed decisions, and foster innovation. And if you think of a scientist, they are often not the first ones to speak. They observe, they take mental notes, they listen, and then when they speak, everybody listens. Everybody hears what the scientist has to say, right? Because they've been quiet for so long. But it does make a lot of sense to me. And he goes on about to say that we really should live our best life by thinking of a scientist in all of our relationships and professional and personal and the way that we go about life, and just embracing the being able to adapt to change and having more informed decisions as the world keeps changing around us. So that really hit home for me.
What I think it was funny about this one is like the scientists that I know, they like drive me bonkers because they're such evidence-based people. And so they like send me in circles and they want like data and specifics. And I want to have like philosophical conversations and talk around things. And I'm like, I feel like this and da 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 da. And so I found it's fun, but I understand his point in this one for sure. That it's this insatiability for curiosity and evidence and finding truth. And but I think that there is some mix of science tends to be like a little bit more black and white, and I think that this is like a curiosity that never ends, like it's learning new ways, adaptabilities, new ways, adaptabilities.
And I like the fact that it also, I think with this way of thinking, it mentions that you can overcome the biases that we had mentioned before. Like if you're biased without even knowing in something, and if you just keep on thinking and questioning everything and the way that you think, why am I thinking this way? Why do I think of such way? And then question and challenging it and making room. Again, I love this, to unlearn something so that you can learn something again for the first time. When was the first time that we learned something for the first time? It's been a while, I guess. So I truly like that.
Don't mind my small child in the background. It's 9:45 at night here, so I have an excuse.
As a closing thought for the four ways of thinking, Grant argues that while each mindset has its merits in certain contexts, the scientist mindset is particularly valuable in today's complex and dynamic world. By cultivating intellectual humility, curiosity, and willingness to reconsider one's beliefs, individuals can overcome cognitive biases, adapt to change, and thrive in an increasingly interconnected and uncertain environment, which very well describes the world that we currently live in. So truly like
and
that.
I think just getting really what I think so important about this is like rereading the points, but getting really quick to recognize when we're being rigid or when we're being closed-minded or when we're not seeing another perspective and going, how do I think again? How do I rethink this? How do I see something? Being able to take a step back and go, all right, I have a bias here. There's something that's like emotionally worked me up about this topic or this situation or this thing, that how do I think again on it? I love that. Okay, let me think again.
Yeah, the power of reconsideration, he mentions it. Being able to reconsider something, to rethink something, and hopefully this book, at least in one area of our lives, has helped us so that we can say, okay, I know that in this one I've been pretty much set. I've been like a preacher in this topic, so it's time to rethink it, unlearn it, and learn it all over again. Like the phones. Sometimes on your phone you just leave it overnight and then it just charges on it adds on a new software. But sometimes when you buy a brand new and it's been months since the last one or years since the last one, it has to reboot itself fully because it can't really go over the latest one. Same thing, you can use that as an analogy with us as well. Sometimes we need to rewire fully and not really build upon what's already existing. Maybe the foundation has to be removed and built all over again, which sounds easier than done. I know we know the theory, but at least we know the theory. So now the hard part is the making, but at least we have the instructions. Anything else, Michelle, John, that you would like to add? Barbara, Philomena, no? All good so far?
This was a good book. I enjoyed this one, but I think he said at like one point he wrote it during the pandemic, so it seems like so much stuff is still relevant. Like even when you're looking in the news right now about people's opinions, like it's election season here in the US, and so it's like, oh yeah, it's people's opinions are going crazy right now. They're not willing to rethink certain things. Like they even had on the news the other day, like there was an interview and they found out that the person was like being paid to be a contributor, and they're like, are these really your opinions or not? So, and even like people having really firm opinions. Like think about what happened like in the UK with the Kate Middleton stuff. Like people really thought that like their opinions, and they were really refused like to rethink what they thought was happening. Even like, here's a picture, no, that's a body double, you know, like people were very steadfast and not wanting to like reconsider or rethink anything. So it's interesting when you think like when you're reading this and there's so much stuff going on right now, not even just in the US but all over, and it's like, okay, yeah, maybe if you were thinking rationally you could see what was actually
But
going on in the world.
but it goes on to
So
show us how hard it is. Yeah, how hard it is to reconsider, and
yeah,
how much.
so it just really prescient, like like a lot of it. And even the way that he framed the conversation about NASA, because they always, that comes up a lot. I feel like when you read certain things, the group think and how that happened and how the explosions happened. So it was interesting that he framed it a little bit in a new way, that I haven't seen before. So that, yeah, this was interesting, and it just felt a little bit more timely than some of the other things that we've read. So it was enjoyable.
Good. But it's amazing
Very
how
good.
hard it is, yeah, to reconsider it. It takes a, you might imagine it, you would think it's a little bit of humility, but it takes a buttloads of humility to be able to reconsider the way that you think. Sometimes it's easier to just come up
Yeah.
with something brand new just to back up, oh no, this is what I said, now I have to back it up. And then you become that person without, maybe a person that you didn't even want to be in the first place, just because you're so stubborn and you have to back your wrong mindset up sometimes.
Yeah, yeah. And challenge yourself, you know, whatever that thing is that you have rigidity on, be it like a political thing, a religious belief, a point of view on something that you say you have conflict with somebody in your life that's close to you. Test yourself and start having conversations with people that are of the other side or have a different opinion in a way that's like just listening and taking in and practicing these things, because you exercise that muscle and on how to listen effectively and not get offended and hear another perspective, and and provide yours in a way that's respectful and kind. Those are skills that you will forever use in your business and personal life. And I think anytime that we have that hardness in us anywhere, it's not good. And so try and break it up a little bit and see how it makes you stronger, really truly, because we grow out of every single, from like people's diets to their exercise routine to their like whatever those things that you have rigidity on. It's interesting just to explore, to grow ourselves. So, but again, I will thank you guys for showing up. Christian, thank you for hosting the last couple weeks. If I've been on the other side of the world. Take
Have a great
care.
day.